nanglo zuere sha nanglo de nanglo do sha mi samo gotsus 야 따데 다리 Queen Street ngazo Jameson ki drum thagaran re ta di kajan di thangbo tyen go gyumzen kharin la na tarin danu che chigni sum du ro di inde zamba ta tari 야 ta tarin de tuzu ke chimbu chikala le de yu 당아란소 베베 포모 나슈 치밀라모 아니 시티 카운슬 라고르와 먼저 시티 카운슬 게 아니 디치고레 의도날 샹고르와 디 인제 잠발라타 디기 아니 사자 카와 카살라 탄다 타칼라오레 디베이트 수데르와 디 인제 잠발라 니기 타 탄다 뚱긴다 카투코나 치밀라모 키란소 단다 토론토로 슈요라지 나 토론토게 키시 제메슨 더 파크델 에리아 일요라지 나디잠 타가라레 디 칼라오레 자프린 메게도와 퀸 스트리트 데체 안 키란소 페어라지 나 단다 페쇼도로 안델라다 타린데 치밀라모다 아니 시티 카운슬 샹게 창마 나로 라파츠다 타린기 samsu di karishere sha di nanglo khembe okay 다른 게 잡죠 칭에 아니 배바 가시 질레 샤 디인디 잠발라 다디 나라 다리 중니 라나 다디 짐라모 잡죠 칭에 로 라오로 대체 배 tar자지 따샤 I'm taking a picture of you with the flag to Chimilamo Jabjo Chingere Injida. The day in December, Tatarin di Nanglola Koranso debate, go to Eresha debate ge Netwendi. Di Nanglola debate chair Resha, Ani Netwendi Karigal share Resha China, housing Kangbegi, Kambamenda, Kangbegi Kangi Yocherwa, housing chair, and the Netwen Sums Tigala, and the Kaja share Resha, or transit. che transit la na tang ado jablo la shungi motor tro tinge yorwa dunju kor che an dende chine ne den sumba de diresha housing tanda de t-shirt this one di inje tambala tang oto chi do da nye nang lo chi gorwa
Hello everyone, my name is Timmy Lamo and I'm ready to be your next city councillor because you are part of the reason that I'm here today in front of you. You have raised me. I grew up in Parkdale. Parkdale High Park is the first home that I could actually feel like I belong here because I was born into this world as a stateless refugee. I was told that you and your parents and your grandparents have to fight for a piece of paper that says you belong to a place, and we had to fight for that. So without a choice, I was born an activist. I became a community organizer when I saw that there was a lack of resources in our communities. We were often pit against each other to be able to fight for one piece of bread, whereas the system would be having 10 pieces of bread. And I learned to organize and mobilize people amongst each other to see the commonality, not the differences, but rather how common we are to each other as the human condition. Because what makes the human condition the most special out of all species is the feeling and the sense of community. We take care of each other. No animal species can last when they break a bone. They become either prey to another predator or they can't get food. So human condition is so special because we take care of each other. And so for me, I'm running to be your next city councillor because during the pandemic, this area was a hot spot. The only closest vaccination spot was 2 hours transit away. Tell me we are not left behind. Tell me we're not an afterthought. It is a lie. I grew up in this neighborhood and I had to fight for even rugby balls in our school system. And so what I'm proposing is to do politics differently. We want to see community voices. We want to see your voices inside of City Hall. And that's what I did with my campaign. I asked community organizers and organizations on the grounds what they want city's priorities to be. They said to me, housing, transportation, climate, and safety. There you have it. Choose Chimmy on October 24th. Thank you.
Hi everybody, my name is Siri Agrell. It's great to be here. Thank you for hosting. Now when I go out to bars, I say, what was it 2 bars ago when I went out in my previous life? I live in the neighborhood. I've been working my way along Queen as I get older. I used to live above Skirley's down in Queen West. I used to live just off Brock. Now I live over on Sonoran. And I've also always worked on cities. I started off as the urban affairs reporter for the Globe and Mail. I went to go work for the Minister of Municipal Affairs, Kathleen Nguyen, worked in the Premier's office, worked in the private sector, worked in the Mayor's office in his first term. I've worked for the Canadian Urban Institute, which I think we have in common. I've advised the Canadian Federation of Municipalities. I believe that city issues are the closest to our lives and the most important in terms of everything that's going on right now. Everything we'll talk about, climate, transit, how we take care of people, how we find the money. It is an urgent time, and the city board is absolutely right. But I am running because I don't believe that we have the right representation in this ward or in city council to address those problems. Everything that Gord mentioned, all those cuts that were made with him in there. Were made with him as our advocate and him with one vote. We need people in there who are going to listen to the community, who are going to respond to their needs, who are going to be able to introduce new solutions and new ways of doing things and be effective. If you're in there and you're losing and you're not able to change hearts and minds and find the money and figure things out and serve your communities, then you're not being effective and it's time for someone new. So they're going to say that I have access to premiers and mayors. I work for them because I know about cities and I know how to be effective, and that's what I plan to do for this board.
Under time, my goodness. All right, so moving right along, the first question is one that I think is at the top of all of our minds, which is housing. So the question for all 3 panelists is, what do you feel is the biggest factor contributing to the lack of affordable housing in Parkdale Hyde Park and across Toronto? Secondly, what will you do as city councillor to address it?
Okay, so there are those who say that the problem is that we're not building enough, and simple supply and demand, right? That's not what's happening. The Canadian economy changed 30 years ago under free trade. The wealthy used to invest in manufacturing, right? All the manufacturing is gone. What do they invest in now? Real estate. 75% of all the wealth in the world is now in real estate. So what is happening in the Canadian real estate market is that we're getting big real estate income trusts like Achilles coming in, buying up low-income housing, polishing them up a bit, evicting everybody, and then that's what's happening. That's what's driving. I think that we in Canada think about housing the way that Americans think about healthcare, right? That only the private sector can do. If you look at successful cities around the world, Helsinki, they decided housing was a human right, and everybody would be housed, and they did it. And they did it with public investment. Vienna, 60% of everyone who lives in Vienna lives in some form of socially owned housing. Do you know what the number is here? 4%. What we have done in Parkdale is to start to fight against that. Through the Parkdale Neighborhood Land Trust and Chimney and all the others who were involved there, we created a program which has gone citywide, which is to buy up low-income buildings where their rent is very low, and make sure that they don't get bought by the private sector and get all the low-income tenants evicted. That's gone citywide. The other thing we're doing is we're taking public lands and in some cases even buying private land, like we bought the Dollarama, to create new integrated housing hubs where there are services, where there's mixed income. This also, other councillors are now taking it up. And this is the way you do things. You don't do things by going asking the mayor nicely. You create change, prove it works, and then you make it go citywide.
Contributing to the housing crisis, let me tell you, it's because housing is not a priority. Folks that are making decisions, folks that have been in power or related to people in power, have not prioritized your housing because it doesn't profit them, right? Community members here, specifically in Parkdale, more than 80% of people here in this neighborhood are renters. Let me tell you, I will be your first city councillor that actually rents. Shame. And in addition to that, so for me, the problem is, how are we including community voices who live the reality of being a renter into city? What type of consultations are happening? How are you actually listening to community members that are too busy working 2-3 jobs to be able to make up rent? Right now, did you know that the Covenant House nearby TMU University are mostly students? When I was the U of T president, the lineups to the food bank would be longer than libraries. People were picking textbooks over their lunches. Now, they're picking housing over everything else. It's ridiculous. And so the way